Thank you, Prasoon. Thank you, Suresh, for that very meaningful chat. And I know that a lot of young people in this room that you were referring to will go back with a lot of insight and something to chew on. So this was something that we wanted to do for a very long time, which is get the two of you together. And I know, of course, of your love for Dohas and poetry, Prasoon, and the creative pursuits, the arts, culture. And that's the whole idea. That's the theme, creativity. We are redefining the idea of what creativity means. And here we want to talk a little bit about how creativity, your creative pursuits, have shaped you as leaders. And have you made better business decisions because of kind of the inspiration that you might have got from those pursuits? Let me start with you, Suresh. You shared a few with us here as well. But how do you see it? How do you see that aspect of you influence your leadership and your work as a corporate leader?
Thank you very much. And it's truly an honor for me to be sitting on this discussion with Prasoon. Prasoon is, in my view, one of the most creative geniuses that this country has produced. So, ये सूरज है, मैं केवल एक दिया हूँ. So there is no question of comparing the diya with the sun. But I can only tell you that in my own case, I think my little bit of interest and sensitivity have been nurtured thanks to going to, and I'm making a pitch for my school, one of the finest schools on this planet. It's a school called Rishi Valley. It's down south, near Bangalore. And I think the transformative influence which that school had on me has defined my existence even today. And a month ago, we had, my classmates and I, 34 of us, out of a batch of 36, assembled at Rishi Valley, which is the beautiful 150 acre of valley, to reminisce the old times. And if there was one thing we all missed, was that magical value system that today a lot of kids outside don't get, but that is imparted in their school. And that gave me that sensitivity. It made me, as my mother said, very uncompetitive, right? Because she said, you don't know how to go and stand in a queue and budge the queue and go and take it. You're very polite. You're very polite and you're allowing people to do, but you'll pay the price for this. But anyway, God bless her soul. I haven't done too badly either. But I think, that's that and the environment and the fact that I got exposed to a lot of very creative people at that stage of my childhood has influenced me.
Prasoon, the journey that a lot of Nestlé brands have had, we spoke about it briefly when we spoke earlier, which is, how there was a poetry that you recited at one point in time when you were working with Suresh on the brands. Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
First of all, thank you for this session. I think trying to, bring poetry and corporate together is what you've been wanting to do for a very long time. For someone like me, and Suresh has said such humbling things before, but it's a mutual admiration club in that sense, because it's very rare to find people like Suresh in corporate world. My worry is that I'm worried of potted plants. I'm not worried of the plants which grow in your आंगन में जो उगता है ना, उससे मैं घबराता नहीं. Like he talked immediately about his school. Now he's rooted somewhere. And you get your energies from where you rooted. When you become a potted plant, anybody can take you and put it anywhere. So I have felt I have never been a potted plant. And I always would resonate with someone like Suresh, who is always rooted in his school, with J. Krishnamurthy's, sort of foundational values there. And where it is not about, being worried that, it's not about being limited or compartmentalized in that sense. It's about being able to draw your energies from an authentic source. See, you can't deny where you come from. And then you branch out. And like Gandhiji used to say that, I need the windows to be open, but I need the bunyad also in the house. So that's the kind of people I resonate with. And fortunately, we sort of, when he came in here, the first thing I presented to him was in a poetry form, because we needed to remind the country of the 100 years of Nestlé in this country, how the journey has been. And I think whenever, and his love for pithy writing, like Doha, a lot of people ask me, how do you sort of do advertising in poetry and all? I think advertising has taught me the ideas of Doha, the economics of writing. Dohas are very pithy writing. So in that sense, I could write the journey of Nestlé, and when you take poetry as your ally, I think if was the same thing was in a presentation, it would have taken 3-4 hours. So that's the beauty of it. And I think he immediately sort of resonated, vibed, and we ventured out. So thank you, Suresh, for always encouraging that part in me.
Suresh, do you remember that pitch? Do you remember that pitch when...
Very much. It was at a very critical stage. It was when the Maggi fire was burning. And when we were being vilified all around, and where, a company that has been rooted, that has been honest, that has been ethical, was trashed. So I remember the line, the first line, Aise bana aapka Nestlé. I think it captured the idiom so well, because, we respect our purpose, our values, our history. हमारी अमानत वही है, हमारी धरोहर वही है. That's all we have in this world. I mean, who are we as human beings? Flesh and blood and a few ideas and a few deeds. If we don't go back to it, we are nobody. And I think what Prasoon did beautifully in that, and it also shot extremely well. Very, very well shot. That it evoked the emotions of a company that had been around for a long time, and we had been around for 100 years. So I think, sometimes the creative idiom needs to transcend logical boundaries. And it was done subsequently also in some of the other campaigns that were developed. I Miss You Too, the campaign on Maggi, when the brand was off the shelf. Right. And there were hundreds and thousands of people getting in touch with the company saying, where the hell can I find Maggi? Right? I was accosted on aeroplane saying that, I'm from BITS Pilani, there is a get-together, and whether we like it or we don't like it, paneer Maggi is a central dish. Can you please give me 10 cases? I said, look, everything has been withdrawn from the market. It's all gone. So when you had this kind of response coming in from consumers, you could have had either of two options. One is to keep your mouth shut and say, yeah, but my brand is not on the shelf, and so what difference does it make? And in fact, the ideas came from the agency and from the team. The team and agency, Nestlé team and the agency worked very closely together. And then we said, we'll take out a campaign that says, we miss you too. And we were missing. I mean, the fact is that it is such an iconic brand, and it's the only brand in the history of FMCG in this country that went from market leadership to death and came back to market leadership within 3 months of its relaunch. I don't think any brand has faced that kind of fire and that kind of return.
Absolutely true. And Prasoon, during that time, right, tumultuous time, of course, for Maggi, like Suresh mentioned. Tell me how this sort of rootedness in the work that you do helped you craft a campaign like that.
See, I think if you look at, we all sitting here, if a lion enters this premise right now, वो discriminate नहीं करेगा lion that this is Suresh and this is Prasoon. I like poetry, I'll eat him later, I'll attack him first. So what happens is that we are narratives for each other.
Yeah.
And in absence of narrative, you are just bodies. The same applies in the brand world. You're just products, and the narrative is added, you become a brand. वो कहते हैं कि भाई धन गया कुछ नहीं गया, health गई कुछ गया, सम्मान गया सब कुछ गया. Now when you say the respect is lost, when the narrative is attacked, when a factory shuts down, there's a different kind of problem. When your narrative is at attack, that has to be fought very intricately. And that's what creative comes into. I am a storyteller. You tell me to tell a story of a brand, I'll tell a story of a brand. There is, for me, believe me, there is no condescension when I'm writing a poem or a song, when I'm writing, मैं कभी बतलाता नहीं पर अंधेरे से डरता हूँ मैं माँ. I approach it with same respect as I would approach, say, 100 years of a brand. Now, for me, there are narratives and I am a storyteller. So I'm telling a story. The only distinction is when you're writing for a brand, you have a defined canvas and you know you're bothered about desired consumer response. When I'm writing poetry, I'm not or less bothered about the desired consumer response. My self-expression takes over there. So that could be a distinction. But I am nonetheless a storyteller. In this case, when you are writing for a brand here, I'm intricately trying to revive, जैसे कहता है ना कि मोहब्बत की याद दिलाया अपने लोगों को. मैगी में याद दिलाया भाई आप कितनी मोहब्बत हमसे करते हैं. You're remembering that. You're remembering your good old days. You're remembering the journey of the brand. And rest the consumer does. See, you cannot fib. You have to be transparent. When you're building a brand, if you're building a brand, sandcastles, they're not sandcastles. You're not fibbing. You have to transparently share what actually you mean for them, what you've tried to do. And that intricate, sort of a fabric of a relationship is what a creative person is trying to revive or strike or weave in, I would say. And that's what probably I would do.
Absolutely. While, of course, this example that we spoke about, Maggi, was critical, Suresh, has there been any other point of time in your career where your pursuits in the arts, poetry, whatever else it may be that you consume as Suresh the person, has that ever sort of helped you in a key business decision in your corporate avatar?
Look, I think before I came on to the Maggi crisis, I spent 5 years in Egypt as part of the Arab Spring crisis. So that was a very different... One crisis
to another.
That was a very different crisis altogether. But the whole country and I had the opportunity of being the head of Egypt, Libya, and Sudan. So it was like really a volcano at that point in time. And I think my being a little light-hearted with a tolerable sense of humor helped me a lot with the people. Egyptians by nature are very warm, very friendly people. And they are very similar, their value systems are very similar to Indians. And I recall that we used to start every crisis meeting with a joke. And somebody once told me, came from the head office, he said, how can you start this is a crisis meeting, you're saying something is burning somewhere and some factory is shut down and something else is happening. How do you start with a joke? I said, because that's what relieves us. It releases the right kind of hormones in your system to be able to discuss more weighty topics as things come along. So I remember, at that point in time when the city was shut, there was no internet, the tanks were out. In the morning, they used to give exactly 2 hours of time for distribution. Nestlé salesman used to be there at 6 in the morning to distribute. We didn't give that guy 1 extra pound, not 1 extra incentive, and they still went and did it. to me, the magic of purpose and the magic of an organization that is genuinely respectful of people is so very important. And that was really, and there were numerous incidents during that period which happened. So I was almost very happy that I was posted after that to Philippines, which was a nice, peaceful, lovely country. And then, as luck would have it, my albatross status could not be denied to me. So it was the Maggi one next. But I think if you read, if you just keep yourself with your feet on the ground and with no anticipation and expectations of yourself except to be a natural, normal human being, I think any crisis you can go through. It's our expectations that kill us.
Absolutely, that's a lovely story that you shared with us and meaning from it. But Prasoon, if you were to, like we were talking about the poem that you wrote on Maggi, we are in a very fast-paced technological era. How do you think, would that have been written today, for instance?
Of course, I think Suresh so profoundly told you about the very, couplets he remembers, and actually he doesn't even remember, he imbibes, he's understood the sense of it. And they are not the poems which people normally quote today, I only hear from him. And I get so pleasantly, it brings a smile that he, he has sort of wired like that. Having said that, I think if you look at, first of all, we're going through the time of content indization in my mind. We have too much of content today. They're snacking so much of content today that by the evening they have content indigestion. As the mother's cholas are not important because you have had so much of snack during the day that you tell your mom that fridge mein rakh do, kal khaunga. That is happening same to the content. And in fact, in the film industry, friends of mine are talking about the same thing. The films are not working. You can't take your audience for granted because they are constantly bombarded with talent. And this indigestion is there. Distraction is there. At the same time, I think more seeking is also happening. People are simultaneously seeking also. So is it the time to, give up on poetry? Or understand that for someone like me who always wrote economically in 30 seconds or even sometimes Suresh would ask me to make it even 20. So we have been economical with writing. Now, if you see a long poem, it has its own beauty. But there are haiku writing, which we also did. Yeah. So I think is the time for creativity, no, there is, in fact, even AI. People talk about a lot is available, and the other day I was talking to a few writers, and everything is available there. Now there are writers also who are registered writers who are non-humans, okay? So they do write scripts and they are, there. When you have everything which is expressed as data, my hope is coming from what is unexpressed. People sitting here, very limited part of them is yet expressed. There's a lot which is, jise kehte hain, avyakt, unsaid, which is there in us. Let me give you an example. You go attend a grim picture, okay, a funeral, and you are impacted by that. If you're a writer or poet, or even if not, you come and write your experiences. Say, you write about, the people you saw there, the way they behaved, everything. That particular expression is available as data. But what you experience other than that, the heat of the funeral pyre, which you have not yet talked about, is unexpressed, is there in you. In fact, and that is what the human wealth is. That's where the emotion, that's what is unexpressed. When we talked about India, so many of India's stories are to be said, are not available as data yet. I come from Uttarakhand and brought up there. There are so many folk tales which are not, I only heard from my grandmother, which I have not read anywhere. They are unexpressed data, which we have. I think the future belongs to humans. Humans will connect with humans because we'll find other ways of connection, and this unexpressed will play a big, big role. So I am not, dystopian about AI, and not at all. And I feel there is a lot to be, because I believe in human endeavor, human emotions. I also, up to an extent, I feel that the future will come from the spirituality, because you are actually plugged into the source, which is unlimited. And that is the difference, limited versus unlimited. And I think probably things will emerge which will, even when we talk about today, the synthographics. I mean, I don't want to get into AI details, but synthographics which is different than photograph, synthograph. It's you give a prompt and you get a picture. Now, earlier you used to take a picture from an existing reality. Now you are taking picture from the reality in your imagination.
Right.
Now, you can consider this an empowered creativity, or you can become dystopian about it. So I am very, very hopeful that we'll have more to come.
Optimistic note then, we're ending on, right? Suresh, optimistic about,
Very much.
about the future?
I am very optimistic about my future, for sure. And I'm sure the world should be either also.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure chatting with you both again.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.